Hi there. This should be an adventure in filmmaking as I record with my camera sitting horizontally looking down at the tabletop. The purpose of this brief video is going to be to show you how to shade, and we're going to look at three factors that impact how you shade. They all start with the letter P. The first one is the type of pencil that you use. That could be the lead that's in the pencil, or it could be the brand that you're using. So the type of pencil affects your value. The pressure that you apply to your pencil is the second thing, and probably the most important. How much pressure you apply to your pencil impacts the value that you create. And the last thing is the placement or proximity of your marks. So the pencil, the pressure, and the proximity. Let's take a look at what that looks like. First of all, I'm just going to use a regular 2B pencil, which is probably what most of you have. You could use a different lead, for instance, 4B or a 2H. I'll use a different film to show you how the pencil brand and lead impacts the value that you create. Today I want to focus primarily on the amount of pressure that you use and the placement and proximity of your marks. So you can see that with this pencil I can make very light marks, and sometimes it helps to hold the pencil further back than to be up here very tight close to the lead. If I increase the amount of pressure that I apply, I can make darker marks. And so it's very important when you are shading, especially if you're working on your final project, that you're aware of how much pressure you're applying. And part of that is a sense of feel, and part of that is the way that it looks. So paying close attention to how much pressure I apply. I've got an example here of a scale, which you will do later, that shows you how you can use the same pencil. Here I used an HB and just varied the pressure. As I increase the pressure, I increase the darkness of the value that we create. You can also see that I can go over it more times and build up layers of value. But again, the primary variable, the main thing that impacts how dark my mark is how hard I'm pushing with the pencil, how much pressure I'm applying with the pencil. The other variable that I want to take a close look at in this video is the placement or proximity of your marks. What I mean by that is, hopefully this shows up on the camera, is if I make fewer marks and space them out, I'll have a lighter value. If I continue to make the same marks, whether they're lines that are straight, lines that are crossing, we call that cross-hatching. This is hatching, this is cross-hatching. Or they could just be curvy lines and scribbles. The more dense I make my marks, the tighter I make them, the darker the value. So the placement or the proximity, or maybe you could think of it as the density of the marks, will also increase the value. So this was done in pen. Now obviously with black pen you can't control the value of the mark, it's just black. So if I have few black marks, I'll have a light value. If I have many black marks grouped close together, I'll have a darker value. In our expressive line project, you're going to be using color, perhaps a color like orange, to shade the background of your design. And we want that background to be very even and not a distraction from the line that you created. And so you can see in these boxes I applied heavier pressure here and lighter pressure towards this end, so that created this variation in the value. That variation we call a gradation. And then moving from left to right, I introduced a second color to change the value of the orange. So in this row we used a black colored pencil with more black and less black and less black, so you can see that range in value. And here we use something called the complementary color, and that's the color across from a color on the color wheel. So this is orange mixed with blue moving across, adding more blue as we go. And if you squint, you should see a lighter orange, a darker orange as we move left to right. So I've got some colored pencils here. Here's an inexpensive Crayola with a kind of a weaker lead. Here's another Crayola. And then here's a couple of Prismacolors of two different qualities, a student grade and then more of a professional grade. So when we're shading, we want to pay close attention to how much pressure we're applying and the placement of my marks, the proximity. A lot of people, when they cover a large area, want to go fast. They push too hard and they move their pencil too fast, which spreads out the marks, making the image look scribbly. We want to avoid, in a finished project, that scribbly effect. So we're going to make sure that we're aware of how much pressure we're applying and how fast we're going so that we keep those marks close together. So this is nice and even. When we're done, we just want to see a flat, even value. You'll notice how I'm holding my pencil back away from the tip. I could go over that again if I want to gradually increase the value. I can increase my pressure. Just a little bit. And push lightly as I move across. I can add different layers. You'll notice that sometimes I'll go different directions. But you shouldn't be able to see which direction I was pulling the pencil strokes. We want that to be a nice light and even wash. In watercolors we would call this a wash, a flat wash of color. So if you've got a large area to fill in, you want to take your time. Think of it in terms of smaller sections like I'm doing here. If I had to color this whole page like this, I just have to be patient, paying attention to the pressure that I'm applying and the placement or proximity of the marks so that it all just kind of blends together. And then if I can create this gradation in value, this subtle change in value, that'll also create a little bit of interest in my picture. People's eyes will move along a gradation. And typically wherever you have the highest contrast, that's where the eye is going to be led to. So if I increase this contrast, this difference between this value of orange and this white space, that's where your eye is going to go. So hopefully this shows up on film and gives you a better understanding of how to shade